Mike Venezia from Taylor Guitars to help us with this Ask the Expert number 8, which is going to focus on the brand new Taylor Grand Theater. This guitar just got released yesterday. If you're seeing this on our Facebook or our YouTube, if you're on YouTube, you can see my full in-depth video review of the guitar. But today our goal is to discuss the origin of the Grand Theater, who it's meant for, what's new and unique about it, which is definitely, there's a bunch about that, and basically handle any of your questions. So if you want to go ahead and type in a question there, we will get to it. So don't hesitate. We're taking pre-orders on these. Most of these guitars aren't going to hit the market until December, but since we're an online preferred dealer, we actually have someone coming in October. So reach out to us, 412-343-5299 if you'd like to pre-order. And you can always text me, 412-915-7118. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Mike was kind enough to get one of the Grand Theaters out to us early so we could kind of get a chance to play with it and check it out and do our video. And he wants it back now, which is annoying. So we're holding it hostage to prove a point. I don't know what the point is, but we're proving it. He's going to get it back, but we have some on the way. So Mike, why don't you just give us just a brief overview of the Grand Theater? Just give us the basic big stuff, the big picture stuff, and then we'll kind of dive into the smaller stuff, the more specific features. Just kind of give us the overview.
Well, it's funny that you say give us the big picture because it's a smaller guitar. The whole thing behind the Grand Theater, we to give you a little bit of insight right off the bat, it was called Project Goldilocks. And the reason why it was called Project Goldilocks is because it just feels right. You know, it's not too big, it's not too small. It just feels right. It is a different scale length than we've ever had at Taylor Guitars. It's a different bracing pattern that we've ever had at Taylor Guitars. It's similar to one of our other shapes, but in shrunken down form. But it's all solid wood, made in the US, great robust tone in a smaller package that's easier to play soup to nuts. So generally speaking, the Grand Theater, speaking in broad terms, fits size-wise almost exactly in the middle of a GS Mini and a Grand Concert, okay? However, the general shape of the instrument is a shrunken down grand orchestra. So if you took a Grand Theater, planted it in the ground, added some water, and it grew up to a bigger tree, it would be a grand orchestra guitar. It's the same basic dimensions, just shrunken down across the entire instrument. If you look at it in comparison to a Grand Concert, the width on the bottom bout is exactly the same. However, the length of the instrument from where the neck meets the body to the tail is truncated. It's shorter. So that's where you're going to find differences on the body. But because it's based off that grand orchestra shape, which has a big bottom bout, it equals out to a Grand Concert. As far as the comparisons to a GS Mini, well, it's an inflated GS Mini size in a lot of ways. It kind of gives you similarities in feel when you're playing it because it is smaller, but it's not so small that sometimes, I guess on a GS Mini, you can feel like your fingers are getting a little kind of cramped together, especially if you have bigger fingers, you have larger hands. A GS Mini might not be comfortable to play because of its 23.5-inch scale length. Bringing all the frets closer together might make it feel a little bit more difficult to play. Your fingers are kind of, doing this thing where they crimp on top of one another. The scale length for our Grand Concerts is 24 7/8, and our standard scale length is 25.5. For the Grand Theater, it's 24 1/8. So it fits almost exactly in the middle of a GS Mini and a Grand Concert scale length, all while doing it as a 14-fret instrument, and we do it with light strings. So it actually gives you a very slinky feel up and down the entire fingerboard. So that's painting it in the broad strokes. Just from a logistical point of view, from the specs point of view, that's what you're looking at in this guitar.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think, sorry, I was messing with my phone, getting us all shared everywhere. The reality of it is GS Minis are incredibly popular, right? I mean, Taylor hit up and created really an entire product category that didn't exist before with the GS Mini. And people have been wanting an American-made GS Mini for forever. But the reality of it is it is a little small. You know what I mean? And it's great for exactly what it does. This size, honestly, when you hold it, it's bigger than a GS Mini, but it doesn't feel demonstrably bigger. You know what I mean? It's when it's in your hands, it doesn't feel like you've left that platform very much. And you absolutely do notice the little bit more room on the scale length. It's nice. And it still feels crazy slinky. Why are GS Minis popular? They're easy to play because the scale length is, it's small. And this feels the same way. I think it's immediately noticeable. Plus, in an all solid wood guitar, we want the attributes of a higher end instrument. You know what I mean? We don't want a big arched back with a laminated back inside and bigger and all that stuff. We want basically this Grand Theater is platformed, this first one, off of the American Dream, right? It's got the similar cosmetic features there. Is that correct in the sense of all satin finishes, eucalyptus fretboard and bridges?
From that aspect, yes. And that's pretty much where the similarities end. Because they are two different guitars with two different sounds, very different shapes, but are sort of born out of the strip it down to basics. Sort of.
100%. Yeah, give
that end.
Good.
Yeah. There are some. There's a nice inlay on the Grand Theater, though. It's a little bit different, and it's quite delicate but pretty, and not ostentatious, but enough to give it a little bit of extra pop on those guitars. But really, the Grand Theater, to be honest, was in plan for years. This didn't come out. Another difference between the Grand Theater and the American Dream didn't exist in our thought process before like February, and even then it took until March when everything started getting closed down because of COVID-19 that, Andy and Bob said, you know what, let's just try to make the most out of, do the most we can with what we have, and let's just keep creating. And so that's where the American Dream came out of, was to try to give a great guitar at an extremely affordable price point that, worked with the times,
sure,
for lack of a better term. And the Grand Theater, in a sense, this version of the Grand Theater is building off that. It's similarly priced to the American Dream. Like you said, appointment-wise, it's, satin finished guitar, all those other things, but it's giving a very different experience than the American Dream, because of the different bracing, the size, the scale length being that 24 1/8 inch scale length. And also one thing I forgot to mention was the neck width, the nut width on these guitars is very different as well. It's 1 in 23/32. So it's right in between 1 in 11/16 and 1 3/4. It's adding to that comfort in a size that's bigger than a GS Mini, but smaller than a Grand Concert. So it's sort of playing on all different ideals, something that Andy's had and has been working on for years, because he's really liked the Grand Orchestra shape and felt that he could do more with that. And then coming up with a smaller size guitar, trying to have that sound robust, had challenges of its own. So that's why you had to create a different type of bracing pattern to get you more bass response out of a smaller body guitar.
Yeah, I think the thing I noticed about it first and just playing it is sonically, it's so powerful. I think when you pick it up, you're not ready for that bottom end to hit you the way it does. And it is, what I think Taylor delivers always tons of definition and focus sonically. I think it's one of its strongest suits is that when you're playing a Taylor guitar, no matter what level of attack you have or what body shape you're holding, if you're holding the biggest ones, you're still getting definition. And in the smallest guitars, they are still robust. But this one, I was interested to see, the bottom end feels like a much bigger guitar. You know what I mean? It's wildly impressive because you hit that low G on a G chord and it feels it rumbling against your body. You feel the guitar vibrating. And anybody who's met me in person is like, I think a guitar that in your hands, if you're playing it and you're not feeling it vibrate against your body, something's off. And an acoustic guitar should be moving. And that comes down to bracing, quality of woods. And let's talk about the C-class bracing, because really, Andy's constantly innovating. And this is in Taylor tradition. Bob would make something and he always said, we're making the best guitar we can make today. That was Bob's message. I've heard him say plenty of times. They're making the best they can do today. But that doesn't mean they're not trying to evolve and make something new and better tomorrow. And this C-class is a perfect example of something that's outside of the box for the Taylor line. So what is the C-class bracing, just in an overview?
Yeah, without getting into, and believe me, when it comes to bracing, you can go down the vortex, the rabbit hole, whatever analogy you want to use, 27 different ways to Sunday. But to give a brief overview as to why a different bracing pattern, first of all, C-class bracing in this case doesn't mean it's shaped like a C, okay? The C stands for cantilever. It's based on like a cantilever engineering style system. If you want to compare it in super broad strokes, you can compare it to a diving board in the sense that it's an asymmetrical bracing. When you have a diving board, right, you have that sort of support that's way back here, right, as you're running off the diving board, and that gives the end of the diving board a lot of flex, okay? That's sort of how C-class bracing is made. Where you have V-class bracing, it's symmetrical. I can't do this in a mirror image. So you have V-class bracing, it's a symmetrical V shape. X-class bracing, it's a symmetrical X shape. C-class bracing is like this, all right? So it's asymmetrical to give you an asymmetrical sound. And he wanted to get more bass response, so therefore he had to leave enough room for the bass side to breathe. Therefore, asymmetrical bracing. And that's the general thing behind it all. So taking it from that end, allowing that sort of diving board to do its job, it's able to throw out more bass frequency that way. That's why he engineered it to those particular specifications.
And in saying that, what's interesting too is understand for players out there that see brands have a very tough time changing. Guitars have been made the same way for a billion years, and it's just because that's the way it's been done. And what I think is really amazing about Taylor, and something that is, I think, puts them at the forefront of the industry, is that they innovate, they make all their own tooling. So it's like when something comes along to make the new bracing, it's just like there's not a third, Taylor's going and designing this stuff for themselves for this specific guitar. And that's why when a guitar that's clearly a smaller body shape and they want to get extra bass, most brands would just throw their traditional bracing into it, whatever it would be, slap it in there and say, hey, this is our new small whatever. And it would be fine. You know what I mean? And if this was a V-class or an X-brace, this would have been fine too. But to make it exceptional, it needed this extra touch. And it's a big thing to rethink your entire bracing pattern for a Grand Theater model, which currently is, just one guitar. So there's a question from Paul, who you've met from Michigan, Mike. He wants to know, why is it called the Geo Mini? That's why the people want to know.
Yeah, I've seen that question a couple of times before. And part of it is that, we're trying to keep the mini nomenclature to our Tecate guitars. It's sort of relegated to that. But also that would give the impression like a GS Mini is a layered sides and back guitar with no back braces, with a solid top that has different bracing. That would sort of really do injustice to what the Grand Theater actually is. The Grand Theater is a wholly new engineered guitar with a different scale length, a different architecture internally, producing sound in a very different way. So to just give it the nomenclature, the name Geo Mini, would really be doing it a disservice in a lot of ways. And I think also when you think of, and I'm not taking anything away from the GS Mini, but when you think of GS Mini, you think it's going to be a more inexpensive instrument. It's going to be that, sub $699 in US dollars sort of thing. This is a USA made solid wood guitar that's well priced for what it is, and extremely affordable for an all solid wood USA made guitar. I'll tell you that much. Again, paralleling along the lines of the American Dream guitars. So it has more in common with our USA built, V-class and X-brace guitars than it does with the GS Mini. Yeah, apart from a shrunken down version of a shape.
And we also know that via Taylor's past, that this platform is going to become more than a model, likely, right? So It's just like probably down the line, think that 2 years from now or a year from now there would be an expansion here. So it makes definitely sense to brand it and let people know that if they're getting a Grand Theater, there's going to be certain things that they're promised. They're going to get promised a certain shape. They're going to get promised all solid woods. That my guess is there won't be a made in Mexico Grand Theater anytime soon because it would, they have the GS Mini that fills kind of that niche. So let's talk about the tone woods, because I think this is another really cool part of the story. This is the second guitar that has been introduced with urban ash back and sides. And the first was the 324 CE Builders Edition. And this guitar has Urban Ash back and sides. So why don't you, Andy found this wood. Let's give those who don't know the story of the Urban Ash.
Urban Ash grew up in Aurora, Illinois, born in 1962. No, Urban Ash is tropical ash. Okay, we call it Urban Ash because it was originally called Shamel Ash. It still is called Shamel Ash. And this guy, I think it was Artie Shamel was his name. He found these trees in Mexico and areas like that, and brought seedlings up to the entire Southern California area to plant these trees. Now, let's again talk in broader strokes. California is great as a state because everything can grow here. If you go from north to south, we have every climate known, right? We have snow, we have hot sun, we have desert, we have wetlands, we have everything in California. So everything can grow in this state. And Shamel Ash was one of those species of tree that could definitely grow here. And it was for, beautification of areas and what have you. And it's a great, lovely looking tree. And at end of life cycle, these trees need to be taken down because otherwise they fall on roads or what have you. You have to be able to take care of your environment. Well, the thing about ash in general, it tends to be a very solid wood. And depending on the type of ash, you can do different things with it. If you get ash from the Northeast and the Midwest, you make baseball bats out of it, right? That's what half of the major league uses is ash wood, ash bats. If you find swamp ash, you can make beautiful Telecasters out of it, right? That's what it's sort of born to be. There's a lot of great electric guitar makers using swamp ash. Well, the Southern Californian Urban Ash really lends itself tonally to acoustic guitar. And that's because in so many ways, it acts like mahogany, okay? It does, Bob Taylor, I love the term he uses. He calls it the golden retriever of woods because it just wants to please you. It cuts well, it dries well, it has beautiful tone, it vibrates quite nicely, it looks great, it takes the stain well. Everything that you would want in a tone wood, it has. And the only thing about it that's different is that you could probably, if you live in Southern California, you could look out your window and see a few of those type of trees. Most of the woods that we're getting from other areas of the world where we're literally one government coup away from losing access to those tone woods, And I mean, as recently as the past, 18 months, we had issues with Indian rosewood, things of that nature becoming harder and harder to get or harder and harder to import. So why not look for other things that would work as a tone wood? Now, there's a couple of things that go along with this that Andy and Bob said recently, and I think they're great. Just because a wood sounds great doesn't mean that we're going to use it. You have to be able to find enough of it in order to use it. And by the same token, there could be a lot of a wood that's available, but if it doesn't sound good, we're not going to use it. So you need to have the marriage of it sounds good and it's available, and Urban Ash is the perfect marriage of all that because it's abundant in quality. We have a regular source of it and it sounds great and it's easy to work with. So all those things play into why Urban Ash is going to be a wood that we're going to be delving into going forward.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And this goes into making something that's, something that is friendly for the, sorry, I'm plugging my laptop in here because we're going to lose juice here. No, it comes out of there. I
could hold this show solo if you really need.
Well, it's the other day I was on a Zoom call and it was at 60% then off. So I said, well, I'm at 75%, so I don't want to chance it any further. Something that is sustainable is so important for the environment, and it's something that's important for Taylor guitars. So this is really cool because I think we're going to see more of it, and it sounds good. So there is that thing where it's like a lot of times there are things that are sustainable that don't sound good. So you obviously don't want to use those. But in talking to Andy at the factory, when you and I were out there and we saw the Builders Edition prototypes, it is kind of like one of those midsy, woodsy sounding. In a sense, it sounds like I hate adjectives because I always think that they're subjective, obviously, but it does have kind of like that rootsy old school. There's Anthony behind there.
Hi, Anthony.
We're plugged in. We could talk for hours.
I saved the day.
Saved the day. So you definitely notice that. And I think that's important on a model that's this size because, if it was really, really, really hard tone wood that was really bright, you might not get the bottom end that you want out of it. So, man, it's just like just a great match. Obviously, a solid spruce top. Let's talk about, since we're going to talk about, woods that are going to be new to these, to Taylor, the eucalyptus, fretboard, bridge, the peg head overlay. What's going on with eucalyptus?
Eucalyptus is something that we're using more of on these new models. And it's not because we don't like ebony. It's just we still need to be careful about how much we're using, and we wouldn't use eucalyptus unless it was plentiful, worked well for what we're using it for, helped the guitar along, and really played a strong part in what the instrument is. And that's what eucalyptus has become. And it's something that we've played around with for a little bit, and we introduced on guitars with the American Dream guitars. We're now expanding that to these Grand Theater models. Eucalyptus feels great. It feels if you ask 9 out of 10 people that play it that are electric guitar players too, they'll say that it kind of feels like rosewood in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. It's a very familiar feel under the finger that way. It's a very fast feeling fingerboard, and it looks cool. It's being that we do this fumed process to it where it's sort of roasted in a way, darkens it up so it looks like ebony. And a lot of times you're not going to be able to look across the room and go, oh, well, that's so different than this wood or whatever. Oh, but you feel a little bit of a difference, but it's not a bad difference. It's good.
It plays fast. I mean, I don't think there's a drop off in performance in that regard. I mean, ebony is obviously super hard and you can feel your fingers fly right along it. And then the eucalyptus, I don't really feel anything. The cool thing is in the one that we have here, there's a lot of character to the look, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, it's got a lot of beauty to it in and of itself, which is really cool. We have a couple questions from Howard, who's one of our great customers that always also attends these things. And he wants to know, is the edge of the fretboard like that on the American Dream or more of the 717 or like an 812 CE? So does it have the rolled fretboard edges on the Grand Theater?
No, it's just a standard fretboard edge, but it could be that the particular one you played may have been a little bit rougher on the edges. I can't, because any of our edges that are not Builder's Edition edges are the same. It's supposed to be the same sort of, slight roll that you have on any fingerboard. That one particular guitar that the gentleman may have played may have been an exception to the rule. But the 717 or something like that, a Builder's Edition, is definitely more rolled over. It's definitely, we go out of our way to roll those edges more for more comfort.
Yeah, I think the fit and finish on these is, pretty premium. It doesn't, there's a lot of guitar makers in this price point. You know what I mean? And obviously Taylor hasn't always offered a lot of American guitars up until this year in this range, right? Like if you wanted a USA made Taylor guitar up until last year, an $1,800 price point for a straight acoustic guitar was about where we started. So now they're, clearly making an attempt to expand the line into things that are more affordable American instruments. And man, I think that the fit and finish on them is at the top of the class and, compared to their competitors. And for what it's worth, also, it's another thing I think about when I'm buying guitars for Empire, because when we always say, if we're selling you one, we already bought many of them, right? So we have to believe in the things that we're investing in. Is that, if you're looking to get a high-end anything, but you don't have $5,000 for a guitar, when you're buying that $1,500 or $2,000 guitar, you should be hoping to get as much of that $5,000 guitar into those $2,000 guitars or into those $1,500 guitars. I think Taylor does an exceptional job of providing that with, especially on the electronic models with the ES2, you're getting the same pickup element, you're getting the same, same expression system too. You're getting those premium features, you're getting all solid woods, you're getting made in the USA, you're getting premium bracing. They've really gone above and beyond of giving players so much in that price point that it usually leads to Taylor being the industry leader in that category. I don't think there's really anything that you guys have done under $2,000 that you don't eventually end at the top of the sales for. And it's because they really are, I don't know. People always get frustrated with me when I say things are underpriced. Even it's, $1,500 item or a $2,000 item can be priced to market. I think Taylor really does that. They provide maximum value, which is incredible. So, and you also get the Aero case with this, which is crazy if we're just talking about it. I mean, if you haven't seen an Aero case yet, I think they were supposed to be in stores, but if anyone remembers, COVID happened and slowed things down. So they'll be probably more plentiful in stores next year. But I mean, talk about an incredible case. I hate to even call it a gig bag because I don't think it is. It's like the Aero case it's light like a gig bag, but really, really highly built, high quality build and protected like a hard case. I mean, and you can humidify in it, which is always important as well. So a pretty great, build there.
Yeah, no, the Aero cases, look, we try to build as much value as we can into every guitar that we build. That's the bottom line. Everything goes, every one of our guitars goes through the same processes, whether it's $1,000 or $10,000. It goes through the same processes, same quality control. The differences are the specifications. It's not the people working on them. They're all the same people. And because we believe in our people, they're well-trained. They do a fantastic job. And I really have to call out everybody in production in both our El Cajon and Tecate factories for doing what they do through all this craziness that we've gone through this year. I mean, look, you've been on the receiving end of all these guitars. Have you seen a drop-off in quality? No. And they're working under really tough, much more tough conditions, between social distancing and everything else. And I haven't worked for other companies, but I got to say, from my experience, we have the best production team in the world. And I give them all the credit because they go to work every day and they pump out fantastic guitars every day, including these grand theaters. So everybody in production, if you're watching this at all, thank you.
Yeah, I think also just a testament to the will for quality is that, while this guitar was launched yesterday and they're going to be available in some stores starting in October in small quantities, they're going to kind of trickle out because they can't be rushed, right? You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know if you can say, are you able to talk about the capacity, kind of like a ballpark idea of like how many Taylor can make of these?
Well, we're making as many as we can. That's the best that's the most specific I can get to it. And the fact of the matter is that we're limited in how many we can make a day, period. Not just grand theaters, but across our entire, production scope. You can only make X amount a day. In order for you to make more than X amount a day, well, you can't just say, all right, start 20 more guitars. It's not that easy.
Right.
Ramping up to do more guitars a day is a slow process because, again, going back to the quality control, having great quality guitars in production, if you just start saying make 20 more a day starting tomorrow, something's going to suffer.
Sure.
Okay. But if you say we're going to make 2 more a day this week and then 2 more a day next week and then 2 more a day next month, well, you can do that with quality because you're doing it in a slow, it's like weight loss, if you lose 20 pounds all at once, you're going to put 30 pounds back on. But if you lose 2 pounds a week over, 10 weeks, you build habits and you get better at it. So that's how it is with production. So, while I can't give you exact numbers as to what we can produce, I can say that we're producing absolutely as many as possible. And the cool thing about these particular guitars is that the processes are different enough so that we can build these on top of what we're already making in our factory. So we're not sacrificing anything that anybody maybe has on order or ready to make these guitars. This is sort of intertwined and built into it growing forward. So we're not taking away from anything that we're doing to make these guitars, which was important because we don't want to sacrifice somebody that's, might be waiting for their 414 CE or something like that because we want to start something else. No, you're going to get your 414 CE, and we needed to find a way to add more guitars in. And that's where our production team is so great. They find a way to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that was definitely some feedback that I'd seen online was questioning if that was going to slow down production for other models that people were waiting for. And, obviously Mike and I discussed that ahead of time because, there's been, tremendous obstacles this year. Mike and I talk about them probably more than he would like, but there are many obstacles that manufacturers have had this year. And, it's like to find new ways to make guitars let's face it too, Taylor's not bringing out $4,000 guitars for you right now. They're bringing out instruments that are affordable, that many of us who buy nice guitars can swing. You know, it's like that, which is another really cool thing just to put in context for the marketplace is, you know, it's like everybody is in different situations given COVID. You know, this is something that if you're used to buying instruments and the premium price point isn't a scary price point for you. It's just like, and the quality is something that I think is something you'd own. This isn't an instrument you get, you know, you get rid of down the line. It's definitely something that'll be in your guitar stable for.
Wow, did we lose Joe? If anybody out there is watching, please let me know if you still see me so I can tell more stories, at least in the meantime until Joe gets back. That's just really, really weird. Maybe I'll just keep talking in general. Anyone? Bueller? Did we lose the entire feed? I hope not. Somebody type in the chat, please. Let me know I'm alive. Oh, good. Okay. So I am still seen, which is a plus. All right. Well, until Joe gets back, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Paul, thank you. Rich, thank you. Tex, thank you. Rude. All right. I was gone, but now I'm back. Geez, what the heck is going on with this thing? All right, cool. So a little bit more about the Grand Theater. You know, again, it's a smaller guitar. You're going to get more comfort out of playing it. I've played them. They're phenomenal. I mean, they feel absolutely great. Is it something that, you know, is better suited for one type of player than another? Well, that's really depending on you, you know. If you're more of a fingerstyle player, you may find it to be better because everything's a little bit more truncated as far as the scale length. By the way, as far as the scale length, it's interesting. So the way that Andy Powers tells the story, he plays about a half step down on his guitars, right? So he takes a 25.5-inch scale length guitar and he tunes down a half step, and that's what he plays in. And when he wants to be in standard tuning, he capos at the first fret. Okay. Essentially, what a 24.1/8 scale instrument is that same concept. So if we, you know, added a headstock on at the first fret of a 25.5-inch scale guitar, that's 24.1/8 inches. So essentially, we're just moving everything down a little bit to give you more of a slinky feel at full tension. We are bouncing all over the place. I think I'm still here. So, but as far as it, let's see, the question I'm seeing is it smaller than a Martin? No, it's just a different shape, you know? It's you know, I guess if you want to say it's the closest thing to our parlor guitar, you know, you can look at it that way, but a parlor guitar tends to be a lot more stretched in the body. As far as a Martin O size, I mean, they're both going to be smaller guitars. I would say maybe it's more like a double-aught, possibly. Cool. I don't know how much. Thank you very much, Tex, for letting me know. I don't know how much you guys saw. But I'll repeat myself just in case. But is it like a Martin O shape? Well, I would say it's probably more like a double-aught. It's more like a parlor guitar that's not as stretched out, if you want to compare it like that. There's a question from somebody in the Detroit area who asks if it comes with a 5-pound burrito. No, it does not come with a 5-pound burrito. I don't know why you would ask that question. That's just really weird. I think you should leave, sir. But anyway, the bottom line is, and Joe is actually writing to us asking if we're on. So let's see. According to everybody that I'm seeing, yes. So anyway, Aaron Davis says, I just left the here. I'm not sure what that means. If you could let me know, that'd be awesome. Does Taylor make acoustic basses? That's a question that came in too. I'll answer some questions. If you guys have more questions, that'd be awesome. Taylor make acoustic basses. The only ones we make right now are the GS Mini basses. Wow, I'm bouncing around the screen like crazy now. So yes, we do make the GS Mini basses. They're still made. We make them in a maple and in a koa version of those basses. They're pretty awesome. The other part of it is we used to make full-size acoustic basses back in like 2001 to 2004. They were known as the AB series. And after 2004, we stopped making those. Now, those were gigantic basses. I mean, they were huge. The case was so big, you could fit 4 children in them. But they had a great big sound, too. And that was something that was designed with Steve Klein from Klein Guitars. So Steve Klein and Bob Taylor did that together. That was a bit of a different type of thing. Now, again, you can't find those guitars anymore. We stopped making them after 2004. But you could find them on eBay sometimes. In a lot of cases, they actually sell for more than what they were new because they're now considered to be collectible. And if you can get your hands on one, I'd play one. They're pretty fun. They're really big, but they were pretty fun. Tech says the GT seems to have more bass than a Martin. And yes, I mean, that's probably true. I hate getting into comparative things because tone is always subjective. And while some things are indisputable, you know, if you go with like a larger size guitar is going to have more bass than a smaller size guitar. When you get into similar shapes, it's more like I could say all day that it has more than this, that, or the other thing. My best thing that I could ever say to anyone is I always encourage you to play the instrument. Find them and play the instrument. You know, when the GTs start going out to certain dealers in October and November, and then more of them in December than anything else, definitely look and see if your dealer is one of them that has them and try to go out and make it happen. You know, find those guitars, play them, test it out, because that's the best way you're going to figure out exactly what works for you. And it answers a lot more questions. I mean, Joe, if he ever comes back on here, and I know he's trying in vain to get back on, the thing of it is that if Joe plays the guitar for you guys on a microphone, right, and you're hearing it through your computer speakers, it's not going to sound nearly as good as if you played it yourself. Now, if you have a great system set up, like say you do like home recording like I do, and you have, you know, JBL 8-inch, you know, near field monitors, you're going to get more. Hey, he's back.
Hey,
you're going to get more fidelity out of those speakers than if you were just listening on your computer speakers or if you were listening on your phone or what have you. So the thing to do when the GTs are available, or any guitar for that matter, if you really want to do comparatives, find a store that has them and play them, and that way you hear it directly to your ears. Joe's done a great job picking up equipment this year to replicate as much as he can, but it's only going to be as good as the speakers you're listening through.
Guys,
I
was in the internet and it was wild. You should see the stuff you can see out there.
Did you wind up in the dark web? Did you lose a kidney?
That was like a cross between, I don't know, like some weird Avengers stuff. I don't know what happened. The things, I was on the upside down or something like that. I don't know what happened, but I saw 3 of me, then I saw none of me. It was terrifying.
Joe, right. I can tell you this much. You know me. I'm never at a loss for words. That's so right. I was able to keep things going. And everybody's a big family here now. We're all friends.
Smooth and steady. So are there any other like big points that you want to hit with the Grand Theater?
You know, well, I hit on some of them while we were away.
I can hear you from Anthony's computer.
Oh, okay, good. So
any other takeaways? Are there any other questions from the audience that we haven't gotten to? Because the reality of it is, like, this is going to be something you can see right on our website. You know, empiremusiconline.com. We have a new site coming next week. It will be empiremusic.com, but don't go there yet because it's not there. But you can see the pre-order. You can see photos of the one that Mike sent us, so you can get a good feel of up-close pictures of it. Obviously, as we get ours in, we will take individual photos of them. And like I said, on YouTube, you can see our product review of it and hear it and see it with the 6K camera. Like, you know, we have nice cameras that we bought that Mike was telling you about. So, yeah, definitely get good headphones and, you know, you'll be able to experience it there. But anything cool from, you know, for Taylor for the rest of the year? What do we got?
Guitars. We're making guitars.
That's what we like to hear. That's just a
We're
victory.
continuing to make guitars.
Yeah.
But that's actually, that's a big thing. You know, I have to say that we as a company, and look, I could break my own arm patting myself on the back on behalf of Taylor Guitars, but look, you as a retailer, Joe, know this. You know, we literally did everything we could to keep making guitars because people want them. And we employ hundreds of people, and we know that all their livelihoods are at stake when it comes to shutting down. When we were shut down for a couple of months, it was really, really, really hard, you know? But we found ways to keep people employed, and we found ways to do things to where we weren't breaking any laws. We're doing things very smart. We kept the brain trust going, creating things like the American Dream and saying, you know what, let's bring Grand Theater out this year, you know, because let's be honest, if all of you, any of you know what NAMM is not happening in January this year, at least not in the sense that we got used to seeing it, where everybody flies out to Southern California for a week and, you know, meets en masse. It's going to be very virtual in a lot of ways. So what we wanted to do is, you know, kind of accelerate that a little bit and give you something now so that you had some momentum with your guitar playing and something to shoot for, and maybe something a little bit different to keep you inspired going into 2021, because Lord knows we could use all the inspiration we can get right now between COVID, between election year, between everything else that's happening in the world today, murder hornets and Joe Revita's hairline, like all these things.
Look at this.
In 2020 have been crazy, you know, so including my own. So, you know, we're never a company to sit back and just be done. You know, that's not us. And because of that, we're able to create and pivot, and, you know, it's we'd rather have something for you rather than just the same old, you know. We always try to innovate and create, and Taylor's tradition is change. So this is just the next level of what happens with change as we keep pivoting, because we have to. You know, we're all victims of our environment, and if you just keep hoping, as our one of our leaders at Taylor Guitars says, as Keith Brawley says, hope is not a plan. So we always have to keep planning and acting on that plan. And the people who win are the people that play guitar, because they're the ones that get to benefit, not just from us, but from other companies innovating because of that.
For sure. So here's what I want everyone to do. If you're interested in anything Taylor Guitars, I would love it if you trusted us here at Empire Music, empiremusiconline.com till next week, and then empiremusic.com. But always 412-343-5299. And you can always text me 412-915-7118. The reason you should buy a Taylor guitar is because everything that they make meets their standards, which is highest in the industry. And that is something that I can promise you. I always tell anybody that walks into our doors, there's one brand of guitars I will open up in front of a customer and show them out of the box. So if we get a guitar in, you special order one from us, or you've been waiting on an 814 CE and we just got ours in, I will open it in front of you and hand it to you. That is terrifying on other fronts. I can promise you that. The feel, the fit, and the finish of Taylor guitars, whether you buy a baby Taylor through a presentation series, these new Grand Theaters, they're beautiful out of the box. We do an exceptional job of taking care of our inventory and humidity. We make sure we set them up. If there's something you want specifically done, different string gauge, whatever, we can accommodate that for you. No problem as part of your purchase. We'll professionally package it and take care of it all the way across the board. So I would like to thank Mr. Mike Venezia today for this Ask the Experts segment on the new Taylor Grand Theater. You will see these at Empire Music by the end of October, probably the third-ish week of October, somewhere in that neighborhood. And they're going to be hard to get. We are taking pre-orders. They're $13.99 for our acoustic models, $15.99 for the acoustic electric models with the Expression System 2. And as Howard is so great to mention, because he's bought many guitars from us online, that we do a phenomenal job. It's something we really, really pride ourselves on, is every guitar that we sell goes through two people's hands. You know, it goes through our tech's hands, and it goes through myself, Todd, or Anthony's at the end to make sure that no one missed anything. It's dialed and it's ready to go. So when you get it, it's straight to your hands, straight to making music. So buy a Taylor guitar.
Hey, Joe,
yes.
Before we go, it's 1:45 here. It's 4:45 by you. I have a couple of really quick questions for you.
Oh, gosh.
Right? You've had the guitar now for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it? I know you did the video, but what are your thoughts? Like, if you were a player just picking it up, what did you think?
What I thought most importantly is, GS Minis are like fun guitars to play, but I always thought sonically they just aren't like my other guitars. You know what I mean? I think it was pretty clear that, I play mostly Grand Concert Taylors. I mean, I probably have 4 different Grand Concert Taylors that are my main acoustic guitars. And that compared to a GS Mini just sonically isn't there for me. They're fun to play. This gets me there. You know what I mean? I'm now have something that is definitely couch worthy. So if you're just like to enjoy playing on your couch and like to hang out and be comfortable, but plenty of boom, plenty of volume and overhead, which is another part of the trick with smaller guitars, is sometimes when you play with a heavier attack, they sound like they're going to choke out right away. This can definitely take a pretty aggressive level of picking, which I think is always important too. So those are the things I noticed. Is it's super comfortable to play. It's beautiful. Something about being understated too. You know what I mean? It's just like, I always think that when the American Dreams came out, we get a sheet from Mike in an email. It's like a PDF that says, hey, here's the new American Dream. And it's like a PDF of a guitar. So you can't tell what to expect of it. And it's, and they're just beautiful in their own right. They're understated for sure. And they're satin, but it doesn't feel like I would be stepping down by buying a grand theater. I think I'd be creating a whole new tone palette for myself, which is another part, because it is a grand orchestra. What do you get at a grand orchestra? Tons of bottom end. And even relative to the shape here, you're still getting tons of bottom end. So if you've been a grand concert player that found them to be not bassy enough, this would be definitely a guitar to explore. But I just thought it was fun to play. It's like I sat down and I'm like, oh, this is just, and like a half an hour goes by. You're like, oh, that's a good sign, because we play guitars all day. So it's kind of like, it's like being at the pizza shop. You eat pizza all day. You kind of can possibly get tired of pizza. I don't get tired of pizza, but it can happen, I'm sure. Well, here we play a lot of guitars. So sometimes, like the new stuff isn't that exciting, or you don't really feel what the brand is trying to do, because, you've played 19,000 Telecasters that day, and the new Telecaster can only be so different. Whereas this, really, I kind of just got lost in playing it, and it just felt nice. And
do you have it nearby?
What?
Do you have it nearby? Because I'd love to, maybe if you can hold that up next to a GS Mini, so somebody can actually sort of visualize, how it compares. I think it's important for everybody to see that. Those of you that are still around watching that are interested, just to kind of put in perspective, no pun intended, because we're literally looking at perspectives, exactly how much bigger one is compared to the other, but how much sonic difference you're going to get. Now, Joe was saying before that the GS Mini is a lot of fun. It is. And sonically, it's not quite, for what it is, the GS Mini is phenomenal sonically. But if you're comparing it to a fuller size instrument, is going to knock it out of the park. Now, if you look at this, GS Mini that, maybe if you change the perspective of the camera, back it up a little bit.
Back it up a little bit. I had it when I went to the upside down, then I lost place there.
Yeah, all good. So, if you go back just a little more, there you go. So there's the GS Mini on the right side of your screen, and on the left side of your screen is the GT. You can see, it's the GS Mini is smaller, the GT is bigger, but it's not phenomenally so. It's those small changes in size and the big change in the bracing and being a solid wood guitar is going to create all the sonic differences in the world for you. So if you're looking for that, smaller guitar with a more robust tone, that's going to be different sound than anything else you have, the GT is definitely going to be it. Now, a question was asked earlier, as Joe strums, will we be using different tone woods or different permutations of this guitar, like 12 fret? I don't know if we'll do a 12 fret with it. I'm guessing it's possible, but that would really make that's like a GS Mini then, with a slightly larger body. I don't know if that would be something we would do, but it's possible. And using different tone woods, oh yeah, definitely. These are things that are all on the table. When? I don't know. But right now, the combination of the spruce top, urban ass sides and back is absolutely killer. And if you know anything about Taylor, when we prototype guitars, we always use a mahogany type wood to prototype, because if it works with that, it's going to work with all other tone woods. Urban ash is very similar to mahogany in that regard. So obviously it works, and it opens up doors for later on for the possibilities of making this guitar with other tone woods down the road. Do I know when that's going to happen? No, I don't. But right now, these guitars, for the price, absolutely 100% amazing, I feel.
Sorry, I'm all discombobulated with the internet, and I got lost in the upside down and had to find the power cord again. But the other thing that you touched on that I didn't point out was that when I held it at first, it didn't feel really any different than a GS Mini just without having one in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
It is super, super comfortable.
Yeah.
But, it's just like if you listen to the video that I did on this, I like to do the inflections and just show that the range of tone and its ability to articulate, because nothing's more annoying. And if you've played other guitars, and everyone here in this watching this probably has, if you ever played a guitar and if you're touching it lightly, it doesn't do anything. It just sounds like it's struggling so badly. And unless you're like beating it like it owes you money, that it's like you're not getting any tone out of it at all. This really opens up beautifully, and it's not twangy. It's really round up top, and the bottom end is just like, again, it hits you like a kick drum. It's like nice and focused and tight and kind of like still pops with a light attack. But as you open it up, man, it just keeps like it's feeling that it wants to give you more and more. Obviously, if you're like this crazy, if you're Pete Townsend and you're destroying every acoustic guitar you have, bigger guitars are where you need to live. But this really has one of the great dynamic ranges of any guitar. What's another great thing that you can get with Taylor guitars? All 6 strings actually work, which is another flaw. And I find it like a lot of guitars, you get the bass strings sound good, the top end is there, and then the whole middle of the guitar just doesn't exist. It creates like this like mush. Yep. Whereas with Taylor's, you can play beautifully up and down the neck with ease.
Yeah. It's up and down the neck. Anywhere on the fingerboard, it's going to play easy. It's going to sound good. And that's really what you want. You want something that's going to sound even, give you everything you want out of it, look good while you're doing it, right? Because you always want to look good. We always have an aesthetic thing that comes along with it. We like a guitar that is, kind to our eyes more. I mean, look at that. It looks great. So, all these things that go into the makings of a guitar, the engineering of a guitar, it's amazing how much work that goes into it. And to come out with something like this, has been just a revelation for us at Taylor. We're really pleased with it. We think that everybody out there is going to be pleased with it. It is something that nobody else really has. It's its own sound in a lot of ways. And I think that if you're somebody who's looking to, just start playing, it's great for you because it's super comfortable. If it's somebody who's looking to add another arrow to their quiver, it's going to give you something different than all your other guitars, which is what you want, right? Because, there's only so many of the same type of guitar you can have that's going to give you this much difference. This is going to give you this much difference. So that's really where I feel the benefits are. It's just has so much upside with very little to no downside to it.
Yeah, there's definitely no duplicity in this. It's like you're not going to pick one and go, oh, yeah, I had 2 just like sit home. So whoever it is in your life that is the person that says, well, don't you have one just like that? Here, now you are loaded with information. You don't have one just like this. Well, let's get one. So, I'm going to show you the inlays here, which are really slick. And
that's just like, it's nice. It's elegant. It's simple, but it's attractive.
Yeah, it's cool.
It looks like rewind and fast forward,
Yeah, be kind. But I would say that definitely a guitar that you won't regret owning because it can perform in bigger situations. So if you're playing with others that have, bigger guitars, it'll definitely hang. But if you're still looking for that cozy guitar with a higher grade tone, man, this knocks it out of the park. And we're really excited to get them in and get them into the hands of our customers. So hopefully we get many of these before the holidays, but I know we're not. We're getting some of these.
One of the other benefits that somebody just mentioned, that yes, it is a good smelling guitar. In fact, if anything, this is kind of weird. It's probably our best smelling guitar, and the reason is because of the spruce and the ash just give off these aromas together, and it really makes it a very nice smelling guitar. I know it's weird, but you got to give it the sniff test. So
when my wife first started to work here, when Gina saw us open up a case and everyone huffed, she thought she had joined the weirdest place of all time. I'm like, well, believe me, it's now we all get a nice huff together. So it's just like she's including this, which is both weird and now I guess normal, because that's what you do when you smell great guitars. And if you ever get a chance to tour Taylor's factory, if that ever happens again, you can smell all the guitars out there. They do beautiful at the factory. So hopefully I don't know if 2021 holds that or not, but so eventually it's going to happen. At some point in time, it will occur again. And we will see Mike out here again eventually sometime next year. We hope
yes, you will.
We'll get him out of his San Diego apartment to come to Steve Pittsburgh for the good weather and the good tacos. So two things that aren't our selling points. But so it's like if you have questions about the Grand Theater, give us a shout right here at Empire, 412-343-5299. You can see the guitars on our site for the pre-order if you're into it. Give a big virtual round of applause to Mike Venezia for joining us and helping us through the launch of the new Grand Theater. We're excited about this. And remember, when you purchase a Taylor guitar, you're purchasing from a great American company that has really done an amazing job in supporting their employees during a really, really tough time and innovating new products to keep them busy. So if things didn't go like they've been going and the demand wasn't there, they could still build guitars and keep their people working. And that's really a testament to Bob and Kurt and Andy, that they really put their employees in a position to be there for them next year and the years after. And Bob and Kurt have really built a legacy, and they've always taken care of their own. And guitars like this not only benefit us as musicians and guitar players, but it benefits many, many people that work at the factory that have families to support. And I mean, it's like, it's easy to fold right now and just take up your stuff and go home and just pout about it. These guys hunkered down and just got their asses to work. And I really, really appreciate that. And Taylor guitars is a staple in our industry, and they're a gold standard. And if you own one of them, you should be really proud of it because you're owning something that came from really great people. So Taylor guitars, the Grand Theater, own one. And if you're smart guys like us, Mike and I, he has other dealers, but he's not going to talk about them today. You're going to get one right from Empire Music and EmpireMusicOnline.com. But if you own one, you're going to get a great guitar. And we're really excited about this and everything moving forward with Taylor for the end of the year and the holidays. So we look forward to hearing from you. 412-343-5299, EmpireMusicOnline.com. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.